I don't put too much stock into trends. If the New England Patriots are 15-5 versus the spread in week 4, I just ignore it. However, that doesn't mean that trends are completely useless. Sometimes they can guide your analysis. Let me explain. One of my best innovations at the Power Rank is my preseason market model. I take win totals and the price to go over and under, and I back out a rating and a rank for every team. This means that I have essentially closing market win totals in college football and the NFL for a number of years. It was kind of criminal to not analyze this data until now. What happens when you bet the under on every single win total? Let's take a look. When I do my preseason market model, I use data on the win total for every team, and this includes the price to go over or under. As an example, in the NFL in late August, Cleveland has a win total of 4.5. The price is plus 120 to go over. So if I bet a unit on Cleveland to go over 4.5 wins, and then that bet wins, then I would win 1.2 units. If I bet on the over and Cleveland wins 4 or fewer games, then I would lose a single unit. The price is different for the under. It is minus 140 for the under. If I bet Cleveland under 4.5 wins and it loses, then I would lose 1.4 units. If I bet under 4.5 wins and Cleveland wins 4 or fewer games, then the bet wins, but I would win a single unit. It's not just the record and betting win totals that matters. The price isn't the same on both sides. What I'm going to do is count up the units won to determine whether a certain set of bets is profitable. Let's look at both college football and the NFL. You need to be a little bit careful with this analysis. For example, in 2022, Cincinnati and Buffalo didn't finish the full number of games. Remember, they did not finish the game in which Damar Hamlin almost died on the field. Let's ask a simple question. What happens if you bet the under on every single college football win total? Let's look at the last 3 years of data from Circa Sportsbooks. It seems like you win if you bet the under. You get a record of 184 wins and 178 losses with 24 pushes. However, when you count up the units, you actually lose 6.75 units. It's not profitable to bet the under on every single college football win total. And that's kind of what we would expect, right? We expect this market to be relatively efficient, especially when I'm gathering this data right before the start of the season. Betting the under on all college football win totals is better than betting the over. If you did that, you would have lost 30.1 units the last 3 seasons. What about the NFL? Let's look at their data from 2018 through 2024. And we actually get kind of a surprising result. Betting the under on every single team went 112-97 with 13 pushes. So you would have actually been up 10.6 units over the last 7 seasons. I debated about whether to talk about this publicly or keep it for members of the Power Rank, but I did want to get you the best information in the 2025 preview series. And in addition, you're only winning about a unit a year. No one is going to get super rich off of that. It's interesting that the under on NFL win totals is profitable on both ends of the spectrum. If you just look at teams with a win total of 10.5 or greater, betting the under is up 3.25 units over the last 7 seasons. I think this makes sense because if you have a high win total, NFL kind of demands regression to the mean, and so you would think to go under on these win totals. But what's a little surprising is that teams with a win total of 6.5 or less, if you bet the under on those teams, you're up 6.76 units. That I find surprising. I would have thought to bet the over on those teams, but that's not what the data says. I think this type of trend to bet the under on NFL win totals can inform your analysis. Let me give you 2 examples from the 2025 football season. As I mentioned, the Cleveland Browns have a win total of 4.5. When I first saw this, I thought it was too low. The offense might be awful, and we'll get to them in a sec, but the defense is potentially elite. It starts with Myles Garrett, who is still the most disruptive pass rush force in the NFL. And not only that, he tends to be healthy. Over the last 5 seasons, he has never had worse than 14 sacks, and he has never played fewer than 800 snaps. That is a remarkable track record. Cornerback Denzel Ward is a crucial piece in the NFL where coverage matters. Over the last 2 seasons, he's at a PFF coverage grade of 69. That is significantly better than the cornerback average of about 60. It's certainly not great that they lost other cornerback Martin Emerson Jr. for the season due to an injury. However, Cleveland did make some reinforcements in the draft. In the first round, they drafted defensive tackle Mason Graham. In the second round, they drafted linebacker Carson Schwessinger. Ryan Noonan of 4for4 Bets was on this podcast earlier, and he talked about how he liked Schwessinger at 40-1 to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. This Cleveland defense is probably a top 10 unit and possibly a top 5 unit. This defense alone might be able to carry Cleveland to over 4.5 wins. On offense, Cleveland named veteran Joe Flacco as the starter, which makes it seem like they might be trying to win. When I look at Joe Flacco's passing success rate over the past 2 seasons, and then I adjust for the opposing defenses that he has played, Flacco has actually been at or above NFL average for both of the last 2 seasons. Last year, it was with the Indianapolis Colts. The year before, it was with these Cleveland Browns. Even if the offense is bad, the defense seems to suggest betting over 4.5 wins. However, I had Cleve TA on the podcast recently. He is an excellent NFL analyst, and he is also a Cleveland native that closely follows these Browns. He noted that their early season schedule is brutal. They start the season with Cincinnati, Baltimore, Green Bay, Detroit, and Minnesota. If you're Cleveland, it's a possibility that you start 0-5 or 1-4. And if that's the case, you probably put Flacco on the bench and give one of 2 rookie quarterbacks an opportunity. I'm not trying to say that the Cleveland Browns are going to tank for a draft pick. Can you imagine telling Myles Garrett that? But you can see that the situation might dictate that Cleveland plays a young quarterback, and that keeps them under the 4.5 wins. My analysis of market win totals over the last 7 seasons would agree with that. I've already talked about the New England Patriots on this podcast series. In the episode on conventional wisdom in football, I noted that I am fading this idea that Mike Vrabel is a great coach. And in that episode, I also talked about second-year quarterback Drake May. But I think the problems for this team go deeper than that. They tried to bolster this roster with some free agents, but I'm not sure that they're all going to help. On offense, they wanted to strengthen the line to help May with some pass protection. They signed center Garrett Bradbury, who has played the last 6 seasons in Minnesota. However, by his PFF grades, he is much worse at pass blocking than he is at run blocking. On defense, this team was pretty interesting last season. They weren't good, and when I take passing success rate as a team on both offense and defense, and I adjust for strength of schedule, the New England Patriots were 22nd in the NFL. That's bad, but not terrible. However, I've started doing a new calculation where I'm not just looking at the team offense, I'm actually breaking it down by individual quarterbacks. And when you do this for New England, now their pass defense is 28th in my adjusted passing success rate. In a meaningless Week 18 game for Buffalo, New England faced Mitch Trubisky instead of Josh Allen. They also got Anthony Richardson instead of Joe Flacco when they played Indianapolis. And then in one of 2 games against Miami, they got to face Tyler Huntley. The defense is bad. They tried to bolster it by some free agent signings. They signed a defensive tackle, Milton Williams. The Philadelphia Eagle had 2 sacks on Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. But we should note that he played a limited number of snaps last year, 653. That was actually the highest of his career, But that was much less than fellow interior lineman Jalen Carter, who played 1,067 snaps. Milton Williams had a really strong pressure rate in 2024 and played pretty well, but that seems to be an outlier season in his 4-year NFL career. New England also missed defensive tackle Christian Barmore last season, and I made that a big deal in my analysis when he was out because that meant I could fade New England. Barmore was great in 2023, but when I went back and looked at his numbers, that 2023 season seemed like an outlier. There are so many issues with this Patriots team. I went to bet this under at Circa when I was at Bet Bash, and they had the win total at 8.5. I thought this had moved up from 7.5. There's no way that the market total should be 8.5 for this Patriots team. I was wrong. The market has been at 8.5 wins for New England for most of this off season. It just doesn't make sense for me. When I was there, I actually bet under 7.5 wins at plus 155. I like the under on New England Patriots this year, and the long-term analysis of NFL win totals agrees with that. Thank you for listening. My name is Ed Fang, your host for the Football Analytics Show. This episode is part of the 2025 Preview Series, a daily series of podcasts to get you ready for football season. This preview series is brought to you by the Power Ranks Sports Betting Newsletter. Looking for some action on any given weekend? This is the free service for you, as 5 Nugget Saturday is my curated list of tips and analytics. You'll also get my football betting resource guide that has all the resources that I use during the season. To sign up for free, go to thepowerrank.com. That's ThePowerRank. Members of the Power Rank get access to all of my best predictions, analytics, and analysis. There are bets on football spreads, totals, and props every week of the season. To learn more about how to support my work, go to thepowerrank.net. That is a URL that will take you to a page on my site where you can learn more about a membership to the Power Rank.